Hello, everybody. My name is Chad Jennings, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Blueprints. I'm joined today by Brian Ryerson, who's the Senior Director of Digital Strategy at USTA, and Rahul Agarwal, who's a Principal Data Scientist from IBM Consulting. And we're going to be talking about the partnership between IBM and USTA to deliver some really interesting data-driven experiences for tennis fans at the US Open. So, Brian, Rahul, thanks for joining today.
Thank you for
Thanks for
having
having
us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Brian, let's go ahead and start with you, please. Can you give us a quick overview of USTA, the US Open, and what's going on here?
The USTA is the governing body of tennis in the US. So we're responsible for growing the sport from all levels, from the grassroots all the way up through pro tennis in the US Open. And the US Open is really our tentpole event. It's one of the 4 Grand Slams that happens every year in August, September in New York. And it's not just a major sporting event, but it's also a massive digital platform and our ability to really story tell the sport of tennis to fans all around the world. So we're dealing with, a really influx of traffic and eyeballs to our digital platforms during the 3 weeks of the US Open.
I think everybody from the industry of retail will understand, the spike that happens before their key event, whether it's US Open or Christmas. And then Rahul, can you tell us a little bit about how you and IBM Consulting have been partnering with Brian?
Yeah, for sure. So I partnered with closely with Brian and the USTA team, and the purpose is to design and build the live likelihood to win capability. It includes the both pre-match likelihood to win and live likelihood to win, which is the point-by-point prediction for each and every match that happens at the US Open ground, and trying to so that the digital fans can experience what is happening on the ground.
Here's a picture of what you just said. And Brian, maybe you can take us through like what's going on here, because I think it's going to put some meat on the bone for what Rahul just described. Then you can talk to us a little bit more about the use case, the thing you're trying to deliver for your USTA fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing here is IBM SlamTracker, which is really our live match center for all things live scoring at the US Open. And, to take a step back and then kind of explain the features a little bit here is, there's many, many matches happening at a single time during the US Open. And we've always had these live scores, which is, of course, who's winning and all of that. But we've seen a transition from a fan perspective. It's not just about the score. They really want to know what is happening in that match before they tune in, before they dive a bit deeper. And that's really where live likelihood to win, which is that graph you see growing across the bottom. That's where that comes in. And really the spirit of what we wanted to do with live likelihood to win is for every single point, we know that tennis is a very strategic game. There's a lot of momentum shifts. There's a lot of changes that happens through a 3 or 5, even 5 set match, right? Is that how does a fan understand who's maybe has that momentum right now? What is happening? Were there big momentum shifts? And really what we did here in partnering with IBM is how do we not just use that historical data, but also some of the live data that's flowing from court? We have no shortage of data, millions of data points are coming in. Is how do we tell that story in a really concise way?
And what's happening here, though, like when you're talking about the millions of data points that are coming across, the image here shows that, the the trajectory of the ball is even captured in real time and then processed through this likelihood to win to result in this graph that shows, the player keynoted in yellow here, like, was behind in the first 2 sets and then comes strong in the third. So like you're taking like real time like graphics as well and incorporating them as part of your input, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And really that kind of goes into that whole storytelling aspect of this is there are momentum shifts that happen in a match and key points. So this is really more foundational for us to help visualize to a fan. And, when they come to a match and they have 17 matches to choose from, if they see that momentum shift that just started, that's a really interesting point of like, what just happened? How do I go figure that out? And that's where it really helps us start those storytelling points.
So let's talk about when you were designing this, like what principles guided the work and the initial design at the outset?
Yeah, I think the first principle, and we touch upon this a little bit, is like, how do we accurately depict the true status of a live tennis match, right? We've done likelihood to wins, which is a lot of historical data and making predictions and things like that. And that was more to drive when to tune in or what matches particularly to tune in. But really I want to say the gap that we notice is that it's also hard to predict which matches are maybe going to be a 3-set or which one's going to go to a 5th round tiebreak and what's going to happen there. And fans really, they want the ability to quickly scan to find the best tennis. And that's where live likelihood to win comes to us, is just really that, going back to that graphic, is a really quick way to make sure that a fan is tuning into the right piece and understands what's happening and that momentum shift in real time.
Yeah, and I can imagine this is a more difficult challenge than, say, the NFL has, right? Because the NFL is like, if you're inside the 20-yard line, then some sort of score is likely. Yeah. So it's a pretty simple algorithm, right? This one is a lot more complex. We'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Very cool.
Rahul, let me turn to you here. Like, talking about getting into like how you make the decisions. What models did you use? Was it deterministic, AI, were stochastic models?
Yeah, I think what Brian mentioned, right? The nature of the tennis game itself is so complex that we had to use a combination of approaches. So it's not one size fits all. So we have so one of the first things that we ended up doing is we split up the live real time point by point layer, and let's call it live match layer, right? And in that live match layer, we are using a combination of deterministic, AI, and stochastic simulation approach. In the pre-match layer, we are using a lot of ML models, pre-trained ML models on all the historical data. And to point out some of the challenge, one major thing that we ended up solving for is that we do not have any sort of base reality. So we use the prior year Grand Slam as sort of a realistic test case to determine how our live likelihood to win is going to be. And we simulated the whole tournament to understand and fix our system and build our system. While doing that, the reason why it's different, like in the NFL, the 20-yard line, that after 5 rounds, the match is going to end. But in tennis, even if it is in the 4th set and a player is leading by 2 sets, it may go to the 5th set, and you would never know whether or not the match is going to end. So that is why we had to come up with our own metrics, custom storytelling metrics, as we want to call it, right? And that identifies some of the stability in terms of whether the match is steady. It is very responsive to the momentum shift, and it is also able to sort of judge whether the model is able to identify the likely winner and how early in the game is it able to identify that, which ends up being true. So this sort of very nuanced and unique sort of metrics we use to build and iterate on the system.
Let's walk through the actual mechanization that you built to accomplish that. So so Rahul and Brian, data flows on these diagrams from left to right. Let's start on the left and go to the right.
Okay, so in this architecture diagram, the way the data, what we're doing is we start off with collecting and storing all the data that we have and building that data foundation. Our data foundation for this particular feature is built in watsonx.data, and it ingests data from many sources, including Sport Radar and including the real-time metrics coming in from the USTA side. And all of this is stored and managed in software such as DB2, Cloudint, and also Cloud Object Storage. Now, all of this is what is being used to train both pre-model and in-live models that are going to be used in the feature.
Okay. Yeah, still going. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, so if I keep going from left to right, so this is where the magic starts to happen. So on the right, the when we start unifying this data, we use many different layers and many techniques. So one of the layers that we use Auto AI to train models and deploy them on something called Watson machine learning. This is deployed in at scale, and that helps us simulate and predict for each and every match what the pre-match likelihood to win is going to be. While trying to predict that, the features that we end up using is some of them are custom defined called the Watson Power Index, which is a consolidation of many features for the players that are going to be for every match based on their historical performance against the court surface and also against each other. We use a lot of real-time data that is coming in from the media outlets, and we identify some of the spike predictions. So for example, a player might be very heavily favorited in the media articles, and that would skew our so that that does not create a bias in our models. We have a separate more Python program called spike prediction that kind of predicts that and kind of curtails it so that it does not impact adversely to our predictions. And all of this is very raw natural language data coming from one NLP.
So you've got a real shift in, there's a lot of pre-match work to do that you just described, but even on the data sources side, right, there's pre-match stuff and then there's point by point, like once the match starts. Let's talk about the real-time aspect because I think that's really interesting. So yeah, once the match starts, everything shifts to real time.
Yeah, in real time, as we saw on the graph earlier, as the match is happening in real time, we get point by point message for all the 17 matches that are happening across using a pub sub method, which is orchestrated using the MQTT system. And in this MQTT system, it has all the information pertaining to a particular point, who won the point, what was the status of it, was it an ace, whether how much was the rally length, and was it a winner, was it a forehand winner, was it a backhand winner. All of that information is encapsulated in that point and is being fed to us using the PubSub MQTT model. And in that is used to then simulate and create this live likelihood to win prediction, and which is going to be updating constantly for every new point as it comes.
And then how do those predictions get to the fans?
So at the end of every prediction, what we do is we create a JSON match feed. Now, this JSON match feed is stored on Cloud Object Storage and then distributed across globally using IBM content delivery networks. Now, these delivery networks are phenomenal at handling scale and edge computing across the globe. And because of which, all the web and mobile experiences have very extremely low latency and high availability, and we are able to give the same experience to all the people at the same time.
And so what's running all this underneath? Let's go through the actual platforms in the middle box here.
In terms of the what we are using to run all of this is all of this runs on Red Hat OpenShift, where everything, each and every Python module that I spoke about is containerized and is running on a very big microservice architecture. All of it is orchestrated and made resilient with flexible scalability using OpenShift. Our CI/CD pipelines help us keep pushing updates and iterating very fast using the Terraform scripts that are going to help us keep deploying and redeploying as and when it comes. And the last bit I want to talk about is, I would say, the observability factor. So because it's a very highly scaled up microservices architecture, it's important to know what each and every app is doing at any given point. And for that, we heavily rely on Instana, and it monitors all the OpenShift pods, the services, and and helps us understand where different things are going.
Makes sense. That actually makes quite a bit of sense, particularly with the diagram that we've got out here. And so Rahul and Brian, tell me a little bit about how like the USTA and IBM Consulting partnered to create this. Rahul, let's start with you.
So IBM Consulting is the core of it, right? Like IBM Consulting is designing and integrating this full end-to-end solution. This ensures everything from data ingestion to fan delivery. And one of the biggest things is making sure it works seamlessly without any glitch throughout the tournament, which is more than 2 weeks long.
Right. And then Brian, from your point of view, like what was the experience of like doing the design with IBM Consulting when you guys started?
Yeah, I think it's, to piggyback off what Rahul was just saying, I think there's a lot of collaboration that happens there, right? We always are thinking about how do we storytell and engage that tennis fan and really trying to think of, having to do that at scale and with accuracy and in real time and making sure that we're providing, again, accurate information, but doing that to fans all around the world and really helping enhance our US Open digital experience. And it's truly collaborative between our teams on making sure that both the technology side and everything Rahul here just walked us through works, but also then that the end user experience and it's truly viewed as a fan enhancement of where it lives on our platform and how it's integrated.
Gotcha. And how long has this partnership been going on?
Yeah, so I believe it's 31 years. So it's a long-standing partnership, and Rahul and I have worked together for many of those years to kind of really help drive forward that US Open experience.
Awesome. It's older than both of my kids combined. Let's let's transition a little bit now. Like we've gone through the architecture. Let's talk about some of the wisdom that you gentlemen have gained working with each other and working together. So, Brian, what were some of the big lessons learned as you built this?
Yeah, I think, and everything we built together, there's always lessons, and that's constantly, we're always trying to get better, right? I think when we're thinking about live likelihood to win and the feature we built here is that AI doesn't, or it's not a standalone feature in itself, right? It's more, it has to be integrated into that fan experience. It has to be, and it has to be in addition to that fan experience and provide a unique value. And I think for us, the whole idea of like that live momentum piece truly solved the fan question of like what is happening now. The biggest takeaway is that fans now expect things like that.
Right. Okay. So yeah, the success breeds higher expectations and need for
Correct.
more success.
Yes.
Rahul. Okay, fair enough, Rahul. I'm in, hopefully you're going to say exactly the same thing that IBM like has leveled IBM Consulting has leveled up the expectations within USTA. So you have to continue to up your game, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I'm completely in line with that. Every time we do something breakthrough for these sporting events, I feel like the bar kind of becomes what we have done, right? Like next year, everybody wants more and more. And
Yeah.
that is what I feel like makes the job so much more interesting and enjoyable because we are constantly pushed by both Brian and our own IBM consulting team to innovate and do the go to the latest technology.
Gotcha. Let's talk about what we delivered or what you delivered for the customer. So what kind of impact did this have on the fan experience, Brian?
Yeah, so I think for us, we saw every year we see a spike, and every U.S. Open is unique. We talked about 31 years of partnership. This will be my 16th U.S. Open coming up, and we have different storylines throughout all of those. But really, debuting the live likelihood to win, I think the success we saw is just the time spent on our platforms and the ability to really guide fans to follow those matches. And we saw over 14 million uniques hit our platform during the 3 weeks of the US Open. That's a pretty good increase year over year and a massive spike from the rest of the year that we see. But it's also not just out of those 14 millions, I think it's not just the traditional fans that we normally get. It's also what live likelihood to win really helped solve for us is the casual fan who, again, is maybe looking for what match they should be following right now. So it also helped us expand our audiences to maybe a different fan as well.
And did you find that fans were really interacting with like all the features that you produced?
Yeah, so they definitely are, and I think it also helps them kind of understand. And there's also, going back to maybe the key learnings part is a bit of like an evergreen piece to this of like once a match ends, where did those momentum shifts happen? Because when you're watching a match live, sometimes you're not thinking through like, oh yeah, that point was the shift of the match, right? So now they can go back and they have a way of really enhancing that. And, as we start to look ahead a bit and think even outside of the fan behavior, some of that is also, we talk about resetting the bar, for lack of a better way of saying it. It also helps out with our storytelling and even our editorial and our content workflows of like, what story should we be telling about this match? When did these shifts happen? Maybe there's ancillary, kind of data or perspective that we could write about. So it's really, I want to say this is part innovation, but now also, quite frankly, and Rahul, keep me honest, but we're thinking of this as a little bit of foundational as well.
Well, I love that. Well, let's use that as the transition. So like clearly you're seeing the fans' appreciation of these momentum shifts. That makes total sense. Now your editorial content folks are like, well, this is where we should focus when we're doing the daily recap. So you're seeing, growth and expanse in the utility of, these algorithms in the system. What else, right? This is clearly not the end state, right? You're just getting started. What else do you see?
Yeah, I think for us is we're thinking, and I'm gonna keep focusing on kind of the storytelling is these momentum shifts. They're not just momentum shifts. They are key points and key parts of a match. And as we dive deeper into those, that really helps our full content workflow, whether that's, our highlights creation, whether it's, identifying those in real time to fans and delivering that a key point just happened. And how do we do that earlier? So the more that we learn and then kind of perfect the algorithm and see where these shifts happen, it's now not just a passive experience of fans going and looking at it. Really, we want to push those momentum shifts to fans and saying, hey, it's an upset alert. This is about to happen, or this player just had a huge momentum shift and is taking over the match. How do we alert fans that is happening?
That makes complete sense, and it's quite enticing. I want to watch more tennis now. Rahul, same question to you, but on the technical side.
I think my answer would also be very alongside what Brian just mentioned is enhance the storytelling. And what does enhance the storytelling mean from a technical perspective is that for this real live likelihood to win, we have a small 5 to 10 second window to do the prediction. Now, even though we are saying that prediction has changed because there's a momentum shift, there's a need for better explainability and transparency so that fans can not just understand that the momentum has shifted, but also understand how the momentum is shifting or what is causing this momentum to shift. And that I feel like is going one level deeper into the analysis and the data points to understand and be able to showcase what is happening in that small time frame.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, it puts amazing demands on the system to produce real-time results that get scrutinized by 14 million people. Like this is not it's not a low stakes thing that you're producing here. Well, gentlemen, we've gone through the end of my questions. I'll offer you thank you very much for joining, and I'll offer you guys the microphone. Like any last thought you want to leave our viewers and readers with?
Yeah, I would just say, the US Open's coming at us fast in August, September, and we have a lot planned as we're kind of again thinking through what's next. So make sure to tune in.
I love the plug. We're going to leave it right there, Rahul. We're going to leave it where Brian said. That's the right place to do it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the work you're doing and for joining us this time.
Thanks so much for having me.